Welcome back to Nobody's Madness. I'm your host, Nobody. Today we're going to be talking about breathing. It's a topic that's been covered probably better than I could cover in multiple venues, particularly when it comes to yoga. But I'm going to briefly go over it because it is very important. So when you think about it, every practice, every art, every system, everything that we do generally, when it's done right, has a specific type of breathing. So why would Psi be any different than, say, sports or science, artwork? All these things, even shooting, requires a certain method of breathing. Breathing is the source of life for the most part for us human beings, at least metabolism. Uh, so, of course, it's going to be important when it comes to Psi ritual. And so, we're going to go over a little bit about proper breathing techniques and cover the fact that most people don't actually breathe correctly. This is this seems weird because we're all breathing all the time, so how can we breathe incorrectly? Most of us are breathing very shallowly. We only breathe with our chest and not with our bellies. We don't actually flex our diaphragm. And our diaphragm is what causes our lungs to fill and inhale and exhale. The diaphragm is actually controlled by the belly, but we can circumvent that and just breathe with our chest, which, to be honest, I was going to demonstrate, but I have a hard time even, just chest breathing now. As you can see, my belly's moving every time I inhale. And most people are breathing with just their chest. And that's not bad, but there's basically three parts to the lung, the top, middle, and bottom part. And if you don't breathe fully deeply, then you're not getting to the lower parts of your lung. And from what I've read and what I understand, it's kind of like a balloon. When you first try to blow up a balloon, it only fills so much. And you have to kind of stretch it out, and then it can stretch more and more and more. Or it becomes easier to fill it with more and more air, is the better way to put it. So that's what we're going to try to do is to open up the lungs. The other portion of this is, at one time it was believed that the substance DMT was produced in the pituitary gland, or the pineal gland, excuse me. But since that seems to be an impossibility for large amounts of DMT to be produced and have an influence, recent studies or research is kind of pointing towards the lungs. Now, when it comes to breathing and the mechanisms of it, if we assume that DMT is in the lungs and that deep inhalation is going to get more of that into our bloodstream, that's one aspect. DMT, look into it. Basically, it's been touted as the spirit molecule, or one that allows us to have spiritual experience and visions. It may be related to the vibrancy of dreams, and just our ability to visualize and picture and imagine things in our head. It's a very interesting substance, but of course, external use of it is considered illegal, which is interesting. But I guess so is the harvesting and use of adrenaline. So I guess, it's along the same lines. So the other portion of that is just oxygen in and of itself. Some people may have heard of O2 bars or oxygen bars, and some people may not. There's a pretty funny quote from Fight Club that regards oxygen, and it's the fact that oxygen gets you high. Increased amounts of oxygen makes us more euphoric, makes us more relaxed. So there's two potential substances just from deep breathing that could have a profound effect on our mental state. So using proper breathing, deep breathing, is essential to practice. There's another portion to this that can be touched on, that some people say no true work can begin until your solar plexus is stimulated. And this sensation is one of tingling or warmth or coolness. It's a sense of energy. It's basically a sense of a sensation. And this can very easily be done with 3 very deep breaths. And from that point, it is awakened and you can feel warmth or coolness or tingling or an electrical sensation at the solar plexus, which is exactly where the diaphragm is. And some believe that you can't do any true work until this particular sensation happens. Now, that may or may not be true for everybody. I definitely stimulated that sensation and had, some effect, and it does seem to be more effective when that portion is stimulated. I have an intruder. You want to sit? Sit. I have a couple of intruders. Anyway, so ignore the Rottweiler and the Dachshund. Yeah, you too. So how do we breathe as deeply as possible? Part of it is flexing out the belly as far as possible. This will fully expand the diaphragm, which will then help fully expand your lungs. So you want to push out, you want to suck in your stomach as much as possible to push out as much air as possible. Anybody who's taken a chorus lesson or a chorus class or been in chorus will understand this flexation of diaphragm. A secondary benefit of learning to flex and control your diaphragm is that you can very easily get rid of hiccups, because hiccups are a misalignment or a spasm of the diaphragm. So once learned to do properly, you're better equipped to get rid of hiccups. It's just a bonus. So you want to push all the air out, which means pushing the stomach inwards, pulling it inwards. And that pushes my chest outwards. And so when my stomach goes outwards, it's pulling air inwards and allows to fill up all of your lungs. Now, this is just basic and, a practice that's worth doing. Practice inhaling as much and as deeply as possible from your belly, not just your chest. And then practice exhaling it all the way. And we cycle through this. More advanced practices involve different types of breathing, some of which is used in modern day Lamaze. These methods have typically been taken from yogic practices, most notably Raja Yoga and Tantra Yoga. So, like I said, it's basic. There's a lot to cover. I'm by no means an expert on breathing, but what I can tell you is that being able to fully inhale and completely fill your lungs and completely empty your lungs, and practice on extending the breath is very important to Sai work. Just like learning how to breathe properly is important for jogging, for boxing, for shooting. When you're shooting a gun, you want to exhale all the way and let yourself relax before you squeeze the trigger. You don't want a lot of tension. So the point is, it's prevalent and valuable in everything that we do. Even a scientist is going to, practice breath control similar to that of shooting when they're pouring explosive or dangerous substances. They don't want to be trembling while they're doing it. They don't want to, and some will hold their breath, etc. So basically, it's just everything that we do has a method of breathing, and Sai has its own method as well. So practice breathing, research different breathing techniques, do some legwork here, but just very simply that flexation of the belly to expand your lung capacity, to stimulate your solar plexus chakra, where your diaphragm is of the utmost importance, and it helps with concentration. Even in psychology, you want to bring your emotions under control. What do they have you do? They have you breathe deeply. Take deep breaths. You have a problem with hyperventilation. That is improper breathing. The cause of that is improper breathing, meaning that there's actually too much oxygen and not enough CO2. The balance is off. And so what a lot of people fail to do is to actually let out their oxygen. They fail to breathe out completely, to fully empty their lungs. So their lungs are full and they're going, which is not balancing out or releasing the air, and they're not actually breathing properly because they've never actually fully exhaled. So learn to fully exhale, especially in moments of panic. Get it all out. And I think you'll find practicing this will greatly increase your lung capacity. And for Psi, this becomes important later on when doing extended chanting, extended breathing exercises, extended everything, not everything, but basically when you get into chanting and trying to induce mantras and hypnotic states or self-induced hypnosis or vision states, or however you want to call these states where we are on a different level of consciousness, breathing is pivotal. And you do the best you can. Not everybody is going to be able to inhale and hold their breath for 3 minutes and then exhale and do it all over again. But the better it is, the more rhythmic, the more deeply you can do this. It has a great effect on our awareness and our consciousness, not just from the rhythm and the control, but also from the substances that are involved in the process, namely DMT and oxygen, which both produce, well, one is considered trippy and the other is considered euphoric. So, but that's it for now for breathing. Practice getting in control of your breath, and do some research and look into various styles of breathing that have various purposes, including relaxation, empowerment, energizing, self-control, emotional control. So that's it for this episode. Try to keep it brief. See you again next time.